And welcome back to the show. Here is part 2 of my interview with actor and author Wil Wheaton and his surprise return to Star Trek after 20 years. You just appeared in the last episode of season 2 of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, you have to know how moving and surprising that moment was for fans.
I could not allow myself to think at all about that.
Welcome to the Travelers.
It would have gotten in my head absolutely in between me and the performance if I really thought about the enormous responsibility that represented. Instead, I just thought, what did I always want Wesley to do? Who could I be? If I were given the opportunity, the unbelievable privilege to be sort of the ultimate mentor, how would I treat that? What would I do with that? I have a ton of admiration and affection for Isa Briones. She's an absolutely remarkable woman, and it is such a privilege to have played a scene with her, and it is such a privilege to share a universe with her. And I personally, as a nearly 50-year-old Star Trek veteran, feel a sense of kinship and a desire to protect this young woman who is in her early 20s, who is also new to the Star Trek world. And I know what her potential future can sort of be. Wesley the Traveler has a similar sort of feeling about Kore. And I brought those two together and used them to inform the performance. And I thought, well, what would Wesley be like if he were genuinely at peace? If he were so fulfilled and he was so, kind of healed, what would he be like? And that is who I leaned into, and that is the person I did my very best to bring to life on screen. It was such a joy for me. It was a gift. It was a privilege. I have watched that scene a bunch of times because it just makes my heart swell. And I have to say that the level of celebration from fandom and my peers has been overwhelming in the very best way.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid and I was doing Next Generation, and I loved Next Generation. I loved Star Trek before I was part of it. And I loved being Wesley. I thought it was so cool to be living on the Enterprise and being part of this amazing show that had existed in my imagination forever. And I absolutely loved it. And I had kind of like lost all of that. I had forgotten all of it. And getting to go back and step into his katra and like really bring him back to life.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And to be celebrated by people, especially when I remember how cruel a very small part of toxic fandom was to me. They were unfortunately the loudest part and the only part I heard in the 80s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know that people liked Wesley. I didn't know that until I was in my 30s. I didn't know until I was in my 30s. I didn't know until I was in my 30s and 40s and started meeting people at conventions who told me, oh, P.S., I'm a mechanical engineer because of Wesley. I'm a bioengineer because of Wesley. I'm a doctor because of Wesley. I finally felt like I saw how people didn't see Wesley on the Enterprise, and I wasn't seen at work and at school and in my house, and I could relate to him, and he inspired me. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was put Wesley in the airlock. We hate Wesley. We hate you. You're terrible. Which to 14, 15, 16-year-old me was just the world reaffirming what I believed about myself because of the ideas my father planted in my head. It was so painful and it hurt so much. And it took the greatest thing that had happened to me to that point in my life and just made it something that hurt. It was awful.
That's so hard. Oh
and
my gosh.
So sad. But I learned that it wasn't true. I learned that I had only seen a very little part of it. I hadn't seen this world of people who were my age, who were also teenagers in the 80s, who loved him and loved what I did with him. And those people, we're all adults now, and we are legion. And we love Wesley, and we're so excited that he's back in the Star Trek universe.
So excited.
And that he's doing what he always was meant to do.
Yeah.
If you remember his last episode of Next Generation, he's like, you know what, I love all of you, but being in Starfleet is so limiting. That's not what I'm meant to do. There's something more, and I got to go find it. And that very much,
what he did.
and that reflects my journey as well. So it's super deep. It's deeply meaningful for me in ways that we just don't have time to go into. But if anyone's interested in it, I have written about it on my blog at wilwheaton.net.
I will be reading about it. Thank you for sharing your truth. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable. Thank you for playing Wesley and showing us that young kids did have a place on the Enterprise. It has been inspiring talking to you.
I appreciate it very much. Live long and prosper.